I swore I would pay off the debt and buy my own freedom. After I escaped, I built a quiet life for myself in a small coastal town, thinking I was finally clear. I never imagined that back in New York she would practically burn the city to the ground looking for me. We found Serafina Vance's long-lost love was the rumor that echoed through the grapevine, the whisper that got me dragged right back into the fire. It had been over 2 years since I'd left New York. It started when my father embezzled $500,000 from the Vance Corporation. To avoid prison and total ruin, he signed me over to them. I was 16. In one transaction, I was handed over to the city's most powerful family, a ward of the untouchable Vance heiress. Serafina Vance was the queen of New York's elite, a woman who could make or break fortunes with a single phone call. For 5 years, I was by her side. I watched her grow from a sharp-tongued teenager into the formidable woman who now ran her family's empire. She called me Leo, but in my own mind, a debt was a debt. I was just part of the household staff, an obligation she'd inherited. In my spare time, I wrote. I ghostwrote articles, penned indie novels, and slowly, quietly built a small fortune. The year I turned 21, I hit $1 million. I wired $1.5 million to a Vance holding account 3 times the original debt, snapped my burner phone in half, and deleted every social media profile I had. While Serafina was busy being paraded in front of some blue-blooded suitor her family had arranged, I packed a duffel bag with a few changes of clothes. With the $500,000 I had left, I walked out of the Vance penthouse and never looked back. I was free. I changed my name from Leo Quinn to Leo Rivers, a baptism of sorts. I disappeared into Port Blossom, a sleepy town clinging to the misty Oregon coast, and used my savings to open a small bed and breakfast overlooking the ocean. The business was touch and go, but I made enough to get by for the first year. The internet was a minefield. Mentions of search, cryptic posts from her friends, feelers put out by Vance Security. I figured Serafina was just stung by my sudden departure. She was probably sentimental about the years we'd spent together and just wanted an explanation. I told myself that eventually she'd give up. Lately, the digital noise had finally gone silent. I convinced myself she had forgotten me. I let out a breath I'd been holding for 2 years. It was time to rejoin the world. Maybe get a real job so I wouldn't burn through the rest of my savings. Besides, I wanted to see my family. I took a train that cut across the country, a day and a night of rumbling steel, back to the small Ohio town where I was born. It wasn't hard to find my parents. They were doing well, minor local celebrities of a sort. The talk around town was that their youngest son had landed in a good home with a wealthy New York family, who'd been incredibly generous. They wanted for nothing. All 5 of my brothers had gone to college and gotten good jobs. On the other hand, had been married off young, and a couple of them were already back living at home. One afternoon, I spotted my parents strolling through the town square. I followed at a distance, pretending to window shop, and listened. Their conversation was a bitter comedy. Where the hell did that damn kid run off to? My father grumbled. He had it made with the Vanceys. What's he doing bouncing around God knows where? A complete waste of the golden goose I found for him. I know, my mother chimed in. That Miss Vance has called 12 times this year asking about him. If I knew where that ungrateful brat was, I'd tie him up and ship him back to New York myself. Exactly. Look how good the Vanceys have been to us. A new house, cars, they even helped the boys find good wives. What more could he possibly want? In all the years I was gone, they never once came to see me. In the beginning, I'd hoped they might. Maybe even that they'd save up enough to buy back my freedom. Slowly that hope withered. I figured they'd forgotten all about the son they'd sold. But they did remember me. They remembered the version of me who lived in a penthouse, a useful connection to a life of luxury. It was clear listening to them that I could never go home again. I caught the next train out that night and headed back to the coast. The job was simple, something that wouldn't draw attention. The hotel manager took one look at me, appraised my clean-cut appearance, and hired me on the spot as guest relations. I'd never had a real 9-to-5 before, and on my first day, I learned that even the simplest job comes with its own brand of office politics. Hey, Liam, a coworker said with a sneer. Manager wants to see you up front. He finished with an eye roll for good measure. When I got to the front desk, the manager was sweating bullets. You're here, perfect, he said, waving me over. We've got a real handful in the presidential suite. None of the other staff wants to deal with her. You're up. She's from New York. A major client, so whatever you do, don't piss her off. I took a deep breath and knocked on the suite door. I pushed it open and asked if she needed anything. The young woman across the room looked up and her eyes widened. She stared at me for a long moment. You look really familiar. You must be mistaken, ma'am, I said smoothly. It's a small town. I doubt you'd know anyone from around here. Is there something I can help you with? Is your name Elias? She asked. Standing up, she circled me, her eyes raking over my generic hotel uniform. I think it is. You're Elias Thorne, aren't you? From the Vance family. I saw you once at a gala my parents dragged me to. You were with Serafina Vance. A jolt of ice went through me. I couldn't believe someone had recognized me out here. I played dumb. You've definitely got the wrong person. I'm a local, never even been to New York. No way. She insisted. Elias Thorne was raised in the Vance household. You don't get that kind of polish from a small town like this. Ma'am, my manager is waiting for me. If there's nothing else, I should get back. She waved a dismissive hand, letting me go without another word. The moment I was out the door, I found the co-worker who'd set me up. What was that about? We're supposed to be colleagues. Why would you do that? Oh, please, he scoffed. You're obviously some rich kid playing at being poor, slumming it with us common folk. You think we can't see through that act? How much is Daddy paying you to LARP as a working man while you steal our jobs? I didn't bother to answer. I walked straight to the manager's office and quit. It was a long shot, but I couldn't risk it. If word got back to Serafina, all my efforts would be for nothing. After a few days of laying low, no black cars appeared, no mysterious men in suits knocked on my door. I finally relaxed. I decided to try my luck in the city nearby, a place with more opportunities. Serafina had insisted on giving me the best education money could buy. I'd learned everything from golf and skiing to racing cars and piloting speedboats. Those skills were useless in Port Blossom, but in the city they were a resume. I landed a job at a high-end ski resort working as an instructor, an assistant manager at the lodge. The owner, a pragmatic man, saw my polished manners and handsome face and was more than happy to assign me to the wealthy clients, particularly the daughters of his most important guests. A group of them arrived from New York for a ski trip. My job was to teach them. During the day on the slopes they were impossible to miss, draped in designer ski wear that screamed money, a stark contrast to the rental gear of the amateurs. During breaks, guys swarmed them asking for their Instagram handles. Youth is a wonderful thing, isn't it? The voice came from the most striking woman in the group. Her long hair was tied back in a neat, professional style, and her custom gear marked her as a serious skier. She had an air of effortless command, a woman from a family of immense wealth, no doubt, the kind of person I needed to keep my distance from. That evening, the resort owner insisted I attend dinner he was hosting for them, along with a few other handsome young men from the staff. Unlike the other guys who were buzzing with ambition and hoping to catch a rich girl's eye, I was just trying to get through the night. I wore my plainest clothes and sat at the far end of the table. The owner kept pushing the young men to make toasts. They were all too eager, practically falling over themselves to impress the beautiful, wealthy women. One guy even broke into a song, earning a round of applause. When it was my turn, I stood up. I'm sorry. I don't drink, but I'd like to toast our guests with this tea and wish you a wonderful trip. These women were, for lack of a better term, little hellions. My refusal to drink was a challenge. What? Are you too good for us? One of them slurred, grabbing my arm. In the ensuing scuffle as I tried to pull away, my collar was yanked down. Hey, that's enough. A sharp voice cut through the noise. It was the woman I'd spoken to on the slopes. She stepped between us, shielding me. She was clearly their leader because the others immediately backed off. Wow. Beatrice, you into this one? Don't worry. We won't steal him from you. Hey! Another girl whispered, squinting at me. Look at the back of his neck. What is that? They all stared, their expressions shifting from drunken amusement to shock. The leader, the one they called Beatrice, frowned. Beatrice. One of them breathed. That golden phoenix tattoo. It's not the one we've heard about, is it? Serafina had her eccentricities, but the tattoo was the one I hated most. She had insisted on it. A delicate golden fiend, etched onto the back of my neck. To me, it was nothing more than a brand, a permanent mark of ownership like the ones they put on cattle. I had been devastated. I always wore high-collared shirts to hide it, but the scuffle had exposed it. "Are you the gay Serafina Vance has been looking for?" Beatrice asked, her voice slow and serious. "No," I replied automatically. "I don't know who you're talking about. I heard the Vances raised him from a boy, kept him completely under wraps. Finding him here. Did she finally get tired of you? You could come with us. You know, you're cute enough." Beatrice shot the girl a silencing look. "Knock it off." "Chloe, what?" Beatrice Montague. "Don't tell me you've fallen for him too. Why are you defending him?" "I brought you all out here," Beatrice said, her tone sharp as glass. "And I don't want you getting into trouble you can't handle. That golden mark isn't something the Vances give out lightly. Anyone in our circle knows what it means. That boy is not just anyone to Serafina Vance." "Don't be stupid," Beatrice Montague. I couldn't believe it. The heiress to the Montague fortune was standing right here. The mood soured. The girls, suddenly bored, ended the dinner quickly. The manager, bowing and scraping as he saw them out, shot me a furious glare. I walked over to Beatrice. "Thank you for stepping in, and for keeping my secret. Though I guess there's not much of a secret left to keep." Beatrice nodded, her gaze distant as she sighed. "So this is where you've been hiding." She looked at me, a flicker of something in her eyes. "Do you need my help?" "No thanks," I said, probably too quickly. "I'm doing just fine." She must have thought I was misunderstanding her, that she was offering me money. She was really asking if I'd be in trouble now that I'd been found. But in my mind, the Vances had given up on me long ago. A few days later, the girls flew back to New York. Nothing happened. No calls, no uninvited guests. I finally let my guard down completely. The resort owner, however, couldn't care less about my mysterious connections. All he knew was that I'd somehow offended his VIP clients. And he made my life hell, assigning me the worst shifts and most menial tasks. One morning, the owner announced that the entire resort was being closed to the public the next day. It was being exclusively booked by a major figure from New York. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. I immediately told the owner I was sick and planned to hide out in my apartment. I woke up the next morning with a sense of impending doom. An instinct so strong I started packing a bag, ready to flee back to my little BB in Port Blossom. Before I could finish, my phone rang. It was my boss yelling at me to get back to the resort immediately and make things right with the guest. So be it, I thought. No point in running now. When I arrived at the hotel, the manager practically shoved me toward the presidential suite. The sight of two stone-faced bodyguards standing outside the door made my blood run cold. I tried to feign a casual turn to make a break for it. But they were on me in an instant. They lifted me by my arms and escorted me inside. The manager, seeing the look of pure terror on my face, assumed I'd done something terrible and started to disavow any connection to me, before one of the bodyguards ushered him out. The person standing by the window turned around. 2 years, and she hadn't changed. Still so beautiful it hurt to look at her. An aura of untouchable power radiated from her, a chilling silence that told me she was beyond angry. Her face, which rarely smiled, was now as cold and hard as marble. I managed a weak, trembling greeting. "Hi, Serafina." She walked toward me, stopping so close I could feel the cold fury rolling off her in waves. She was tall, nearly 5'10", but her presence was so immense it made me, at 6'3", feel like a child. She wore a severe black dress, her hair pulled back in an elegant twist. She looked like she'd just walked out of a boardroom meeting and flown directly to the small city to corner her prey. "You ran far, Liam," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. I tried to force a smile. "Soha, what are you doing here? Just passing through." "Don't play dumb with me. Did you really think I couldn't find you just because you were hiding in some dead-end town?" Her eyes narrowed. "You've gotten bold. Working a hotel. Is that what I taught you?" "I'm doing fine," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Thanks to you, I guess." "How did you find me?" "You think changing your name to Liam Rivers was enough? The moment you used your real ID to buy that train ticket, I knew where you were." so I've been exposed from the very beginning. So, I stammered. How long are you staying? What? You're not planning on coming back with me? Well, I paid back the debt, didn't I? My dad owed you $500,000. I paid you back 3 times over to buy my freedom. You're a reasonable person. Can't you just let me go? If it's not enough, I can earn more. I still have some money. I started to reach for my pocket. The rage in her eyes could have set me on fire. She stepped forward and gripped my chin, forcing me to look at her. I thought you left because you were angry that my family set me up on a date. But this whole time, you just saw it as a debt to be settled. You wanted to sever all ties? Let me tell you something. Liam Quinn, you are never, ever getting away from me. I pulled my chin from her grasp and looked down at her. Why not? I never signed my life away. I want to be free, Serafina. A woman of impeccable control. She looked like she was about to explode. Instead, she swept the vase off a nearby table, shattering it against the wall. She took a deep, shuddering breath to regain her composure. With a flick of her hand, she commanded, "Take him." Minutes later, I was on a private jet soaring back to New York, back to the Van Spent house. Nothing had changed. My room was exactly as I had left it 2 years ago, a time capsule of my gilded cage. This penthouse was where Serafina and I had lived while her parents preferred their sprawling estate in the countryside. Without me, the place felt sterile, stripped of what little warmth it had. Well, I'm here now, might as well make the best of it. I went around greeting the household staff, who all seemed genuinely happy to see me. For days, I didn't see Serafina at all. She was clearly still furious, and I wasn't about to provoke her. She allowed me freedom of movement within the city, but a team of bodyguards shadowed my every step, a constant reminder that I was a flight risk. One evening, my phone rang. It was Serafina's number, but a friend of hers was on the line. "Your girl is completely wasted. You need to come get her." When I walked into the private room of the club, Serafina was slumped on a velvet couch, dead to the world. The group of women with her, all familiar faces from her inner circle, stared at me as if they'd seen a ghost. "The prince consort returns," one of them exclaimed. No wonder she drank herself into a coma. I nodded a greeting to the group. "Good evening, ladies. I'm here to take my boss home." As I moved to help Serafina up, my eyes met Beatrice Montague. So she and Serafina really were friends. Beatrice walked over to me, her expression unreadable. "So you're really back, yeah? Didn't get far? Do you need help?" she whispered, her voice slow. "If you want to leave, you can come to me." "It's fine," I murmured. "Don't want to cause you any trouble." In the dim, pulsing light of the club, her gaze seemed almost sad. I gently closed the door behind us. In the car, Serafina was silent, her head resting against the cool leather of the seat. I knew her tolerance. There was no way she was as drunk as she was pretending to be. Before I could process the thought, she launched herself at me, a whirlwind of cold perfume and a sharp scent of expensive whiskey. Serafina kissed me, softly at first, then with a desperate intensity. I froze, completely rigid. She pulled back, the hurt plain on her face even in the dark. "You still want to leave?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Why don't you ever understand? You're so stupid." She must have overheard my conversation with Beatrice. "I saw her my own way," I argued. "I don't want to depend on anyone. Is my family short on money?" She shot back, her voice laced with sarcasm. "It's your money. I need to make my own. I need to be my own person. I've told you 1,000 times, you're not my servant. But in my mind, I owed you. In my mind, that's exactly what I was. Are you trying to give me an aneurysm?" "Serafina, I need to work. You can't keep me locked up forever. I'm a person, an individual." She knew she couldn't win the argument. Worried I'd try to run again, she offered a compromise. A job at the exclusive Van Zone Golf Club as a guest relations manager. Her plan was probably to make me so bored and miserable I'd give up and accept my role as a pampered bird in her gilded cage. But for me, any job was better than no job. Work was work. The job at the club was easy enough. I greeted high-level clients, answered their questions, and made sure their experience was seamless. My quiet patience and refined manners went over well. Most of the members knew about my connection to the Vancies, so no one gave me a hard time. Beatrice Montague started showing up at the club constantly. Mostly, I suspected, to get under Serafina's skin. The Montagues were one of the few families whose wealth and power rivaled the Vancees, so Beatrice was one of the only people who dared to poke the bear. One afternoon, we were chatting when the club manager came rushing over, apologizing profusely to Beatrice. Apparently, some nouveau rich girl had thrown a tantrum and smashed the headlights of Beatrice's convertible. I followed them to the parking lot to help smooth things over. The girl, utterly fearless, tried to shove Beatrice. I instinctively stepped between them. Beatrice was a VIP guest, protecting her was my job, but this girl was on a rampage. Seeing me in her way, she barked at her bodyguards. "Take care of him." My temper flared, but before I could do anything stupid, Beatrice put a hand on my arm, holding me back. "Let him go." Serafina's voice cut through the tension like a razor. She'd arrived with her own security detail. She gave a curt order to have the girl escorted off the property and permanently blacklisted. For the first time, the three of us, me, Beatrice, and Serafina, stood face to face. The air crackled with unspoken history. "He's with me, Beatrice," Serafina said, her eyes fixed on me, her brow furrowed. "He's a free man, Serafina," Beatrice shot back coolly. "He has a right to choose. A choice. Did you forget about the tattoo on his neck? Others might not understand, but you do." I subconsciously touched the back of my neck. What did that tattoo really mean? I made a mental note to ask Beatrice later. She clearly knew something I didn't. "I don't care," Beatrice said, her chin high. "And I'm not afraid of you." I quickly stepped in before a full-blown war could break out. I thanked Beatrice for her help and then grabbed Serafina's arm, pulling her away. As I glanced back, Beatrice's expression looked strangely desolate. Serafina let me lead her away, but she was still fuming. "Were you hiding in that city for her? Are you insane?" I said, exasperated. "We're just friends. I didn't even know who she was until a few weeks ago." "Serafina, you don't have to look at me like that. If I ever get married, it'll be to a normal girl from a small town, not someone from your world." I added for good measure, "One day when you feel I've repaid my debt, I'll find a nice girl and settle down." A fresh wave of fury washed over her face. She spun around and left, kicking the door to my room so hard the frame splintered. Every time I provoked her, I didn't feel happy. There was just this stubborn, twisted part of me that refused to let her win. I genuinely believed my life was meant to be ordinary. My family, my background, everything about my past screamed that I didn't belong in her world. Maybe one day Serafina would meet someone suitable and finally let me go. Then I could go home, find someone normal, and live out my days in peace. Lost in these thoughts, I was summoned by her mother. When I first came to the Vance household, Serafina's mother had noticed her daughter's unusual affection for me. She had gently, but firmly reminded me to know my place and do what was expected of me. Even though I was young, her words stuck with me for years. I did just that. No matter how kind Serafina was, I focused on my studies, on earning money, on paying back my debt. Mrs. Vance knew this wasn't my fault. It was Serafina's stubborn refusal to let me go that was the problem, and she seemed weary of it all. "Let me be direct. Liam," she said, her voice calm and measured, "you and my daughter are not a match. Your backgrounds are too different. Ma'am, I've always understood that. The opportunities you've given me are more than I could have ever asked for. That's why I left as soon as I paid back the money. I never intended to come back. She cares for you. If you leave again, she'll just keep searching. If you truly have her best interest at heart, you'll persuade her to see Julian Croft." I agreed. I asked Serafina's driver where she was. He told me she was at a downtown bar. I showed up in jeans and a t-shirt. The bouncer looked me up and down like I was a lost college kid until I tilted my head, showing him the phoenix tattoo. His demeanor changed instantly, and he respectfully let me in. I pushed open the door to the private lounge. Serafina was on a sofa drinking alone while two bodyguards stood watch. On the couch next to her, a handsome man was holding a glass of champagne to her lips. It had to be Julian Croft. I walked over slowly, preparing my speech. The man on the sofa immediately sized me up with a look of disdain. "Who's this kid? This is no place for children." "Scram, I'm here to take her home. Tell you what, he said with a smug grin. You drink this whole bottle and I'll let you pass. Serafina kicked his hand away, sending the glass fly. In the dim light, her eyes were filled with a profound loneliness that made my chest ache. What are you doing here? Don't drink anymore, I said softly. Julian is waiting for you at home. Your mother sent me to get you. I'm not good enough for you, I thought. You deserve better. She slowly exhaled a single word as if it took all her strength. Fine. When Julian Croft left the penthouse later that night, he was beaming. After all these years of pining for Serafina, he'd finally made progress. He even thanked me as I was in the kitchen preparing a late dinner. A few days later, Julian showed up at the golf club with a group of friends and specifically requested me to join his party. He smiled graciously and introduced me to his friends as a member of the Van's household staff who knows Serafina best. He was discussing marriage with the Van C's, he announced, and wanted my advice. Liam, he said, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. Tell me, what is Serafina like? I listed everything I could think of, her favorite foods, hobbies, the brands she preferred. Julian listened intently, the picture of a doting fiancé. He was everything a man from his background should be: polished, charming, and utterly ruthless. At the end of the day, as he was about to leave, he turned back to me. Liam, I've always known Serafina is in love with you. I've been watching for years, waiting for her to come to her senses. It seems she hasn't. But I don't care. She's a suitable wife. You could never give her the life she deserves. In the end, she can only choose me. I'm the only one who can give her what she wants. It was a gut punch. I knew it was true, but hearing it said so plainly filled me with a quiet despair. You're right, I said. I know my place. If you want to leave, he offered, I can help you. It was perfect. They needed space to build something real, and I needed to see my little BB again. It was the one place she hadn't found me yet. If I help her find a good husband, surely my debt would be paid in full. Julian arranged a private flight. This time there would be no tracking my ID. Back in Port Blossom, I disappeared completely. My days were filled with the sea breeze and the simple rhythm of cooking and cleaning. I forced myself not to think about what I'd left behind. To keep myself busy, I even started looking at dating profiles, trying to find a normal person to go on a normal date with. I was at the age where I was supposed to be settling down, after being surrounded by the impossibly beautiful and wealthy women of New York. Would you like me to continue the story and describe what happens when Liam tries to go on his first normal date in New York? I worried my standards were too high that I'd end up alone. The woman I met was a local government employee. She was neat and tidy and seemed pleased enough with my looks, but every other sentence out of her mouth was about cars and houses. The date quickly lost its appeal. Was I being too picky? So Elias, she said, summarizing our conversation. You're telling me you have no job and no house? She continued without waiting for a reply. I need a man with ambition. Before we get married, you need to buy a house and a car. Also, my younger brother isn't married yet, so I'll need you to give my family $1 million as a bride price. I took a sip of my coffee and couldn't help but smile. Should I buy your brother a car? Too. My sarcasm was lost on her. Her eyes narrowed. My salary may be low, but I have a stable government job. My mother says my future husband has to be able to support my brother. I shook my head. What a waste of time. I might not belong in New York high society, but surely I wasn't so pathetic that I had to settle for this. I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life. At least I knew how to make my own money. Ma'am, I don't think you're looking for a husband. You should probably just stay home and take care of your brother forever. The woman shot to her feet, hand raised to fling her coffee at me. Before I could move, a figure in a chic tracksuit stepped and unpoured a glass of ice water over the woman's head. It was Beatrice Montague. How did you find me? I asked, stunned. I called your old boss at the ski resort. He had your address. She looked at me, a wry smile on her face. Do you have any idea that New York has been turned completely upside down? I paid for our disaster date, and we walked back to my place. I made her a cup of coffee and we sat on the porch, the quiet hum of the ocean a world away from the chaos she was describing. Serafina went nuclear, she said, her voice a mix of awe and amusement. She seized control of the entire Vance conglomerate, launched a hostile takeover of the Croft family's main corporation, and completely dismantled their empire. The Crofts are ruined. She took a sip of her coffee. She's looking for you everywhere. The whole city knows you're missing again. Beatrice looked out at the sea, thoroughly enjoying the drama. You know, she's offering a $5 million reward for any information on your whereabouts. What? I'm worth that much, I joked. Can I turn myself in? I can help you hide, she offered. Thanks, but I don't understand why you're being so nice to me. I have nothing you could possibly want. I admire you, she said simply. I've heard your story. A poor kid who turns his back on the Vance fortune to buy his own freedom. It's unheard of. If I wanted to use you, I would have exposed you the first time I saw you, but I didn't. She paused, then added quietly, the truth is I've always had a crush on Serafina. I stared at her, completely floored. Then why? Because I know I can't have her. She's yours. She saw my confused expression. But you love her too, don't you? I do, I admitted. But I'm not good enough for her. I'm just a servant boy her father bought. How could I ever be worthy of her? I can't get past that. Beatrice laughed, breaking the tension. And you're out here on a date with that woman? If Serafina knew, she'd drag you back to New York, hang you by your thumbs, and then feed that gold digger to the dogs. As if on cue, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, Beatrice couldn't help but let out a dry, defeated laugh. Serafina stood on my porch. She strode past me, her eyes locking on Beatrice, and without a word, slapped her across the face. I immediately jumped between them. Stop it. It's not her fault. I left on my own. Serafina ignored Beatrice, her gaze fixed entirely on me. Her voice was strained, fragile in a way I'd never heard before. I'm going to ask you one last time. Do you want to leave? If you say yes, I swear, if you don't come looking for me, I will never bother you again. For the first time, I saw the vulnerability beneath her iron exterior, but I still couldn't bring myself to stay. I can't get over the hurdle in my mind, I said, my voice heavy. Please, send me abroad. I want to study. I want to build something for myself. I needed to be a free man to become someone worthy, before I could even entertain the idea of standing by her side as an equal. She agreed. Just like that, I was on a plane to London, finally getting the chance I'd asked for. I knew I was still under her protection, that she would never truly let me out of her sight, but she respected my wish. I knew she would. The next 2 years were a whirlwind. I threw myself into my studies at the London School of Economics, worked part-time jobs, and interned at a fine in the city. I barely slept. My professors praised my quick mind and relentless drive. By the time I graduated, I had saved a considerable amount of money, enough to be considered a minor success in my own right. One spring day, the gray London sky made me homesick. I missed the vibrant, chaotic energy of home, the taste of spicy barbecue and sizzling skewers. I packed my bags and booked a flight back. The moment I landed, I called Beatrice. I still felt guilty about the slap she'd taken for me. You got hit because of me 2 years ago, and I never even said sorry. Let me buy you dinner. Barbecue on me. Beatrice picked me up in her sports car at the restaurant. My American stomach finally woke up. I devoured plate after plate of food, oblivious to Beatrice's shocked expression. She had matured in the past 2 years. The playful girl replaced by a poised, elegant woman whose regal air would intimidate any stranger. Serafina has been on a corporate rampage. She told me between bites. She's the most feared person in New York. One wrong move and she could end you. You should eat. I mumbled through a mouthful of brisket. This is delicious. She's almost 30 and still not married, you know. Every eligible bachelor in the country is lining up for a chance. And you're not worried at all. What's meant to be will be, I said. Worrying won't change anything. I paused. Hey, there was something I always wanted to ask you. That tattoo on my neck. What does it actually mean? I can't believe you don't know, she said, shaking her head. It's her mark. It signifies that you belong to her. In our world, anyone who's not a complete idiot knows not to mess with you. It's a form of protection. She looked at me seriously. and if I'm not mistaken, it's a mark she would only give to one person in her entire life. So that's what it was. All this time, I thought it was a brand of servitude. And you? I asked. How are you doing? I'm really sorry about what happened. I don't need your apology. I'm doing fine. No boyfriend, but fine. I couldn't help her with. The Vance family was hosting a gala that night. I asked Beatrice if she could get me in. I sat in a shadowed corner, watching the glittering crowd. I recognized most of them from my teenage years. Serafina had always brought me to these events. So much of my life was inseparable from hers. I remembered how she would proudly introduce me to her friends, and I would always wonder why she bothered introducing a servant. Eventually, her friends started teasingly calling me her prince consort, as she never corrected them. My father sold me to her, yes, but we went to school together, studied together, got into trouble together, laughed together. She bought me gifts to make me smile. She threw me birthday parties, something my own parents had never done. She was my friend, my guardian, my entire world. And for all those years she had been quietly supporting my family back in Ohio, a fact I had never known. For all her sharp edges, she was rarely truly angry with me. The most she would ever do was tap me on the head when I was being impossibly stubborn, soft-hearted woman. I watched her now gliding through the room with a champagne flute in her hand, effortlessly handling business associates and fending off admirers. I saw men summon their courage to approach her, only to be politely but firmly shut down. They would retreat dejected, and another would take his place. I watched her for what felt like hours, until finally her eyes scanned the room and locked with mine. 2 years abroad felt like half a century. "You're back?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper across the silent room. I broke into a wide, happy grin. "I got tired," I said, "so I came home." "Are you going to leave again?" "Never." The armor she had worn for so long finally cracked. She crossed the room in 3 quick strides and collapsed into my arms. In those 2 years abroad, my perspective had shifted. I had learned that we are all born equal, and no one is inherently better than anyone else. And now I was my own man, a small success in my own right. It was time to be brave, to finally pursue the woman I had loved since I was a boy. This time, I rented my own apartment. I didn't move back into the Vance penthouse. A few days later, Serafina's mother came to see me. "It's good that you're back," she said. 2 years had etched fine lines on her face. In my memory, she had always been a vision of perfectly maintained elegance. She had never been particularly warm toward her daughter, but now her expression had softened. "For years, my daughter has ignored every man who has approached her. I was beginning to worry," she said with a wry smile. "It was wrong of me to try and separate you back then. You're her great and resolved business. She can't live without you. I've spoken to her father. He's always been fond of you, and I will no longer interfere. From now on, just live your lives and be happy together." I was stunned. I had been bracing for a dramatic confrontation, the scene where the wealthy mother offers you $1 million check to leave her daughter. I'd even rehearsed my refusal in my head. $1 million wasn't nearly enough. Shortly after Mrs. Vance left, Serafina arrived, looking anxious. "What did my mother say to you?" "Nothing much." "Good," she said, relieved. "I was afraid you'd pull another disappearing act." I said, taking her hand, "I'm staying here with you." During the wedding preparations, Serafina insisted on flying my family in from Ohio. Everyone came except for my 2 oldest brothers, who couldn't get time off work. Seeing them was strange. I had been sent away so young that the bonds of family felt thin and unfamiliar. But I was grateful to Serafina for wanting them to witness my happiness. I booked them rooms at a luxury hotel, but they insisted on staying at the Vance penthouse. Serafina, ever gracious, obliged. "Look at this place," my mother exclaimed, her eyes wide. "Our Elias really made it. Imagine living in a house this big." There was no shame, no remorse for what they had done. They reveled in the luxury, acting as if selling me had been a stroke of genius that landed me in a paradise. "Elias," my father said, getting down to business, "we need to talk. Some of your brothers have dead-end jobs. Now that you're going to be the man of the Vance house, you should see about getting them better positions." "Yes, Elias," my mother chimed in. and our house is bursting at the seams with your sisters and their kids living there. We heard you've made quite a bit of money. You should help out with the family expenses." Their eyes held no love or pride, only calculation. "Did you forget that you sold me to this family?" I finally snapped. "Are you all suffering from amnesia? This is the Vance family, not a flea market where you can just ask for whatever you want. All those years, not a single letter, not a single phone call to see if I was okay. If they had shown even a shred of concern, I wouldn't be this angry now." "Elias, don't talk like that," my father said indignantly. "It was fate that you and Miss Vance met. How else would we be connected to a family like this? You should be thanking me for losing all that money. If I hadn't, you'd be stuck in Ohio marrying some farmer's daughter like your brothers. So I should thank you for selling me when I was just a kid." Serafina gently put her hand on my arm, stopping me. She knew how much I'd secretly longed for a family, for the affection I never had. She also knew that my parents were not worthy of that longing. "Uncle Auntie," she said, her voice polite but firm, "please make yourselves at home here for as long as you like. If you need anything, just ask the staff." "Oh, yes. Thank you, our dear daughter-in-law," they gushed. Later, she turned to me. "They're your parents. What's past is past. You have to let go of that. If not in your heart, Elias, then only then can you be truly happy. I was unlucky, sold and traded like property at a young age, my world painted in shades of gray. But I was also the luckiest man alive. I met Serafina Vance, and she healed the wounds of a childhood I thought was beyond repair. After we were married, I dedicated my life to taking care of her. I never let her lift a finger, and I never spoke a harsh word to her. I had found my way home,